Hey, welcome back to another Haven't Read It video. We got 5 stories from Malicious Compliance today. Let me know in the comments what subreddit I should read from next. First story of the day, Supervisor said, don't just type BRB. So I told the whole team I had to poop.
So this recently happened in my call center type job. My brand new supervisor, promoted for all the wrong reasons, wasn't exactly qualified. I could write a whole post on that, but the gist is, she only got promoted because she was friends with the boss and is always giving him advice on the women he dates. Anyway, we had a Teams chat where we kept each other updated and asked for help with things. Normal procedure was simple. If you stepped away, we would typically just type BRB, so everyone knew you weren't available for calls. Did this for years with no issues. Well, the new supervisor decides that's not good enough. She needs to assert control and dominance. She announced to us in one-on-one convos that we all had to start giving specific reasons for why we were stepping away. I told her I wasn't really comfortable announcing to the entire team every time I had to use the bathroom. She basically shrugged and said, "It's the rule. We need transparency so I know what everyone's doing. Okay? We've had no issues for years, but whatever she says goes, I guess." The very next time Nature called, instead of a boring BRB, I typed, "BRB, going to go poop in the bathroom." Immediately, she private messaged me in Teams, saying that was not professional. I reminded her she told us to be specific, and I was just following directions. After that, others started joining in. Some favorites were BRB, going to stand in front of the urinal and do an impression of a water fountain. BRB, going to blow my nose to try to dislodge this giant booger. Within a week, the supervisor started telling us we didn't need to be so specific when stepping away from our desks. Like, yeah, we know. Top comment says, BRB, poop all done now. Pictures at 11. OP says, damn, I should have added the pictures part. LMAO. Someone responds, reminds me of when my husband was younger. He and his friends would send their post-potty pics to each other just for shits and giggles. I never understood it, but they sure enjoyed the fun. That is gross, man. Someone says, I mean, how else are you going to prove it to your supervisor? Someone else responds, I'm surprised your boss didn't make you take your laptop in with you. This comment says, update, does anyone know where the poop knife is? Oh man, I should read that story for you guys on this channel. The poop knife. Yeah, this comment, I use the status update, had more sinkers than floaters. This top comment says, I kind of want more examples, LMAO. The impression of a water fountain. One is pretty funny. OP responds, well, one other coworker said, BRB, baby just projectile vomited all over me. Next comment says, what if someone were on their period and had to go change? I would have loved to have seen her face if someone did a BRB along those lines. OP says, OMG, that reminds me. She once genuinely asked my 30-year-old female coworker if they were going through menopause because they mentioned they were hot a lot lately. No. For those who don't know, women don't generally start menopause until they're around 50. Next comment says, this kind of micromanaging in remote jobs drives me insane. If you were in an office with your boss and coworkers, you would not be expected to stand up and announce every shit. OP says, we're hybrid, and I was in the office. Oh no. Last comment says, this isn't malicious compliance. This story reads more like, my boss is a lady and I don't like it vibes. Sure hope your dick doesn't fall off. Parentheses, it won't. OP says, nope, just a story about malicious compliance. Her gender had zero bearing on that. Odd that you would think that. Someone else replies saying, it's malicious compliance about micromanaging managers. It's not about you lacking reading comprehension. So true. Second story of the day. You want these ads done 3 months in advance? No problem, boss. Long-time lurker, but I finally have something to share that's happened within the last few months. I work as a senior graphic designer for a company for 5 years now. Originally, it was only a team of 3, a marketing manager, a marketing executive, and myself. The former 2 have since quit, and you'll find out later why. A huge part of my job is to handle a huge advertising schedule in a project management system, PMS, for which I design print and digital ads for. Enter my difficult micromanaging manager. He's the VP of sales and marketing who's been with the company for 30 plus years. His way of quality control is to force all our marketing materials to go through an approval process in our system in which everyone else has to give their feedback, and only then will my manager give the final sign off once it reaches him. On top of that, he insists on being copied on every notification for every single step of the way. So every single ad I produced had to be sent through our system while tagging the product managers and proofreaders. Those individuals would then comment feedback for changes needed. Or if the ad is approved, they'd mark it complete and then send it along to the next person. It would end with this micromanaging manager who'd have the final say on whether it's good to be sent out or not. Sometimes the process would be flawless, as everyone would approve it the first time with no changes needed. But when it got to my manager, he'd reject it, and I'd have to do it over pending his remarks. The thing with our system is that you can see timestamps of when people viewed updates. He's on our project board, so he gets all the updates, and he could have easily interceded earlier and let me know if changes were needed to pass his check so I'd not waste my time. But because of the way he is, he only wants to see the final drafts after everyone else sees them. Everyone else always seems to move things along in a timely fashion, but when it finally gets to my manager, he'd just let it sit, and then you'd have to constantly check to see if he marked it off. When I pushed back and stated how arduous this all is, his tone-deaf reply was to have it done 3 months in advance. He also insisted that the ads I produced have to look different each time for each publication's insertion order. So after 4 years of handling all this by myself, I was barely meeting deadlines, and the quality of my work started slipping as I was making really stupid mistakes. Every few months, I would ask my manager if we're going to hire an additional designer for our department since we're doing more marketing, and every year I'd hear, "It's not in our budget right now." Things came to a head during one of my biannual reviews, where I told my manager bluntly, in front of HR, that we desperately needed to hire an additional designer, as there was no way for me to hit the 3 months ahead goal that he keeps parroting. He actually asked me, and I quote, "Is it typical for companies to have more than one graphic designer?" I'm dead serious. I showed how I handled everything by myself as best as I could at that point, and I was getting burnt out. For those that may ask why I stay, they compensate me very well without having to commute into a major metropolitan city. A golden handcuffs situation, if you will. By the end of the meeting, my manager finally caved and gave me permission to hire an additional designer who started with us this past January. While showing him the ropes on our design systems, he told me the manager said something snarky to him along the lines of, "I never imagined having to hire 2 designers. You guys should have no problem being 3 months ahead on ads now." Are you kidding me? Over the years, I watched my manager as he hired a plethora of account executives and replacements for our department, most of whom quit within months under his watch. But he's going to give me crap for needing one designer after I made things work for 4 years by myself? I was so infuriated by his comments that I decided, he wants ads done 3 months in advance? Okay, bet. I trained the new designer on our approach to the advertising schedule in the system and the ins and outs of the approval process, and we went to work. We both proceeded to bury my manager in notifications as we churned out ad after ad after ad, pushing items through the pipeline with my manager receiving notifications on every single update. When the tasks ended at him and we got no response, we set up automations to ping him every hour calling for his approval. We also would send detailed weekly reports stating our progress and also made it inherently clear to mention our goal was to be 3 months ahead of deadlines. By this past May, in time for one of my biannual reviews, my manager made an announcement. He announced my coworker, the marketing assistant, would be promoted to the vacant marketing manager position. Furthermore, they would now be handling the advertising schedule and be the final point person going forward. My manager also asked to have all notifications for him be removed, as he didn't have the bandwidth anymore to monitor it and is taking a step back from overseeing us. We collectively broke my manager after only 5 months of doing exactly what he asked. And I've got to say, things have improved greatly so far. Our new marketing manager is very laid back, as we're still getting things done ahead of schedule, and he is really good at what he does. We've also since hired 2 more additional employees for our department, and we've been steadily growing. My newly promoted coworker recently joked with me and the junior designer about how he wanted to go over the advertising schedule for next year with our manager, but he elected to not see anything and fully trusted my coworker to handle it completely on his own. Funny how that works. Talkama says, "I love blasting the manager with notifications. If you do your work in a day and it takes them a week to approve, it's not your fault that you didn't hit a schedule. It's theirs." Someone responds, "Finish work on Monday. Enjoy 6-day weekend. Repeat." I love that comment. Someone else responds, "I only had to threaten the no boss with this. She would order all the supplies for the business and was terrible at attention to detail, and would often order the wrong thing or accidentally put through an order of very expensive non-returnable product that she was just window shopping for." What? She was supposed to notify us of any shipments coming in, but never did. After the 3rd or 4th time we got a shipment of something she had ordered wrong, she tried to blame us for accepting the order. She said if she doesn't tell us the order is coming, why on earth would we accept it? I told her no problem at all. I will either spam her with calls for every order we get, or when she inevitably doesn't answer her phone, I will just refuse them at the door. We got at least 5 orders a week, more around the holidays, and these were often orders she had placed months in advance before stock ran out. After a moment of quiet contemplation on her part, she said that wouldn't be necessary and wandered off. Someone responds, LOL, my supervisor just requested this. It's going to be hilarious. And the last comment is question to OP. So, the new person got promoted to manager over you? OP says, earlier I mentioned the part about replacements for our department. We went through 3 marketing managers, including the one that was already there before I was hired. That person quit, and then my manager hired another one several months later, who then also quit a couple months later. Rinse and repeat one more time. So while the position was vacant for a while, my manager finally elected to promote my coworker to fill the void because it made sense. Keep in mind that not everyone wants to climb the ladder, as I was a young manager once and I hated it. The extra responsibilities, duties, traveling and overstepping boundaries of work-life balance that comes with it. I'm already seeing my coworker get an influx in his workload. I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I'm getting manager pay for a mid-level role and duties. Plus, I find my skills to be at the best in a supporting role, which I'm lending my guidance in helping my coworker adjust to his new role. My current manager did ask me during one of my past reviews, what's next for me, in a bid to see if I wanted to move up. I was able to squirm out of it as I knew what would be in store for me and prefer to keep what I have. Someone responds to OP saying, OMG, I feel this. I'm a teacher with a master's degree and additional graduate work besides. And the inevitable question is, do you want to promote? Hell no. I want to be the best teacher I can be, and I understand the Peter principle. I don't want to be that person. Next story of the day. If you're going to watch TV, you have to include your little sister. When I was around 10, my parents had a rule. If the TV is on, your little sister has to be allowed to watch too if she wants. I usually wanted to watch cartoons, and she always wanted those annoying sing-along shows, arguments every day. One Saturday morning, I turned on the TV, plopped her down in front of it, and immediately put on a wildlife documentary about ants. I sat there with the remote in hand, patiently explaining every single scene to her like it was the most exciting thing in the world. She lasted about 6 minutes before running off. My dad poked his head in, saw her already running off to play, and asked why the TV was still on. I told him she didn't want to stay. I don't know if my parents knew what happened, but for some reason, my parents quietly dropped the "you must include her" rule for the rest of that summer. Cartoons were mine again. Top comment says, Dad making it sound like there was no reason for you to want to watch TV if your little sister wasn't watching too. Smart way to go about it without getting in trouble though. Most would put on something that was too grown up for younger siblings or was scary. OP says, if I had put something scary on, she probably would scream and my dad would figure out what I was trying to do. Next comment says, I was the little sister with 3 older brothers. I grew up watching the Three Stooges and WWF wrestling. I was not able to convince 3 boys to watch Sesame Street. OP says, almost impossible to do that. Last comment asks, not clear. If you watched TV, did your sister just watch? Or did she have to get to choose the show? I'm assuming the latter, but not sure. Did your dad expect you to not watch TV if your sister wasn't there? OP says, most times she sees me in front of the TV, she comes in and asks that we watch her sing-along shows. And when I say no and ask her to go play, she cries and goes to Papa, hence the rules. Next story. If you're going to eat snacks, make sure you share with everyone. When I was a kid, my mom had a rule that if anyone opened a bag of chips or cookies, they had to share with everyone in the house. Fair enough, until I realized I could use it against the rule. One day I wanted cookies but didn't feel like splitting them with my brothers because they inhale everything. So I took the rule literally. I grabbed a family pack of cookies, walked room to room, and gave 1 cookie to every single person. My parents, my 3 brothers, even left one on my baby sister's high chair tray. Then I walked out to the yard and gave one to our neighbor who was mowing his lawn. Even the dog got one. Now since everyone had been given their share, the rest were mine to eat in peace. Mom couldn't even be mad because I technically followed her rule. My brothers and mom still bring it up and laugh about it whenever we talk about childhood loopholes. Top comment says, had a Spanish teacher in high school that said we could eat in class if we brought enough for everybody. Well, very few high schoolers had extra cash to buy enough for everyone, so it seldom ever happened. One day during lunch, we could leave campus, Some friends and I went to the local grocery store to pick up some groceries for one of their moms. I happened to notice a bunch of snacks on sale and joked that we should get enough to share with the whole class. My friends all agreed, so we each picked up random things. I bought 2 packs of cookies and 2 cans of whipped cream. One guy bought 4 big bags of chips. Another bought several packs of gum. Another bought 2 cases of soda. And the last guy bought a big bag of grapes, peanut butter, and Ritz crackers. We get back to class with backpacks full of stuff, and I take out 1 pack of cookies. The teacher tells me I can't eat in class, so we all took out the rest of the food and put it on our desks, just staring at him. He chuckles and shakes his head, then says, "Let me get the plates and the piñata." We all had a blast. Everyone got a weird but tasty treat. And we even had random teachers coming over to snag a cookie because they heard through the grapevine we were having a fiesta. We also got out of a pop quiz because the teacher had one planned for us, but changed his mind because, in his words, you can't have a quiz during a party. The second top comment says, similar story. Parents insisted, ordered, that I share any snacks with my sisters. I brought home a bag of some potato chips and started munching them in front of the TV. Wouldn't you know that my sisters stuck their greedy little hands inside the bag and stuffed a handful of chips into each of their faces. Every one of them turned bright red and scrambled to the kitchen. I heard them crying and complaining to Dad about it. He came in mad as hell and wanted to know what trick I was pulling, so I handed him the bag. I forget the brand, but it was some kind of fiery / red hot / flaming potato snack. He tried one, gave me a stink-eyed look, and confiscated the bag for himself. Last I saw of it, he was scarfing down them chips and drinking beer while watching some game on TV. No more was said about sharing, but my sisters were more careful to ask what I was eating after that. Someone responds to this comment, "My God, your dad was a jerk." I was thinking the same thing. The commenter responds, "He could be, but he was still my dad, and I miss him." Probably think about him every time you want to eat a snack and watch something. And story number 5. Supervisor told me sarcastically to call the fire department. I did. I worked in retail in between jobs way back when, early 90s. Yeah, I'm old. Get off my lawn. It was December, a major department store that is no longer around. I know that doesn't narrow it down. Sorry. Anyways, they tried to cram as much product on the floor as possible, to the point that you couldn't walk through the aisles and had to twist and turn to get past the fixtures set up with product. I casually mentioned to a supervisor that if the fire department ever came in, they would close us down for the hazards and lack of egress. She was highly stressed and blurted out to me, "You know what? Then call the fire department." I held my hands up and said, "Easy." She assigned me my duties, and that was that. Well, she did tell me to call. On the way home, I stopped by a government building that had all sorts of agencies in it. Told the receptionist my plight, and she pointed to a phone on the wall. "Tell the operator I want the fire department," and they would patch me through to the station's non-emergency line. The fire chief himself answered. I told him how crowded it was and what the supervisor said. He had a good laugh and said they'd check it out. I was off the next day, but heard about it when I got back. The fire chief and a station house full of firefighters show up to do an inspection. He tells the store manager that egress is being blocked and he'd have to remove a lot of the fixtures in the aisles. Store manager says he has orders from corporate. Fixtures stay. Fire chief assures him he will win the argument. Store manager stands his ground. Fire chief, "All right, boys, close them down." They evacuated the store, all 3 levels, and closed all entrances. In December, prime Christmas shopping season. Although it wasn't a weekend day, it was during the week. But still, store manager tried to protest, and suddenly the sheriff's department starts showing up. Long story short, they were closed for 5.5 hours while the chief, store manager, and employees rearranged the store to acceptable levels. The supervisor never treated me differently, so I'm guessing she didn't remember the conversation. The store manager, surprisingly, did not get fired by corporate, but corporate was not happy. About a week later, I'm working with the store manager and supervisor when she asks why we can't do something a certain way. The store manager replied, "The fire department won't allow that." And that was it. I worked there a few more weeks before getting a job that almost got me killed in a workplace shooting, but that's a story for later. Edit 1. There are some videos on YouTube about postal shootings. One done by a woman, which is insane. Even the comments. The one I was in, the person was acting out for well over a year. Skeptic magazine had a great issue about mass shootings, I think from 2013. One study they talked about was how the mass shooters never snap, but act out for usually a year or longer before committing the act. Interesting stuff. Myself, as well as other employees, expressed concern to management about the behavior and potential for violence, but they said that employee was harmless. It didn't surprise a lot of us who it was when it happened. I could go on, but honestly, most of you would think I'm lying, but I could corroborate every story. And the funny part is, other postal workers would snicker and say, "That's nothing. Let me tell you what happens at our facility. It is the most violent workplace in America, and also the most deadly." Tuck comment says, a store I worked for got an unexpected inspection by the fire marshal one morning. I was in the back room sorting shipment when a coworker came running through, grabbed me to follow him, and we spent 10 minutes moving mannequin parts and other fixtures out of the electrical zone. As soon as we finished, our store manager escorted the fire marshal into that area and saw it was clean and organized. She was shocked and surprised, but managed to hide the fact. As soon as the fire marshal left, she came to us and asked if we'd done it. She gave us both $50 gift cards as a reward for saving the store from a costly citation. The commenter responds, adding, "This manager wasn't often good, but in this case, she knew we'd probably saved her ass." That is true. Next comment says, "Coming on, P, you can't leave us hanging like that." And OP responds, "I got a job with the post office. I was involved in one of their many shootings." Someone else asks, "So you left this job for the post office?" And OP says, "Yes. What makes it even sadder was that I chose the post office over UPS. I had offers from both at the time." Yeah, sadly the post office has a flat rate for anywhere you live, and the benefits keep going down each year, not to mention the pay. All the UPS drivers I've ever seen have always been super bubbly and happy, even though they're working like 12-plus-hour days. Those drivers are raking in the cash. That's all the stories I have for you today. Thank you for listening. Add your comments below about these stories, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.